The last board hit the dirt. Splinters flew. I remember thinking, oh, she's not letting that slide. She didn't flinch. Marlene stood over the line, holding a saw still warm. This was always our path, she hissed. Neighbors watched. Someone laughed. Someone filmed. Harper Lane didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even blink. Just stared at the sawdust, at her boots, at the slanted sign now crushed under a heel. Private property. The air held. Then her fingers flexed. The tattoo on her wrist shifted. Ghost Viper, a nod, small, sharp, like flipping a switch. And still, she said nothing. She never yelled, didn't need to. People like Harper Lane didn't win by raising their voice. They won by remembering. The kind of remembering that sticks, like how the soil near the oak tree dips half an inch lower. Because that's where her father planted tulips, year after year. Or the faint crack in plank 12, left there the day she rebuilt the fence with her bare hands. After the funeral, HOA said it wasn't up to code. Too personal, too different. She didn't argue, just nodded, then measured, cut, set the line herself, nail by nail. Not because she liked fences, but because grief needs edges, and some lines don't get crossed. This wasn't just a backyard. This was the last place her mother ever walked barefoot, the last place her dog refused to leave. And now, someone had sawed through it like junk wood, with strangers watching. She stood still, but her mind was counting. The steps it took to reach the edge. The number of inches off Marlene had miscalculated. The HOA clause most people forgot. Section 4, B, paragraph 3. The one about historical boundary claims. A rusted wire rolled across her boot. She looked down. It stopped exactly where she'd buried the old permit file. The one they all said didn't matter anymore. She exhaled. Once, quiet. Her sleeve shifted. The tattoo showed for just a second. Ghost Viper. Some people join units, others survive them. Harper never told the neighbors what it meant. Didn't need to. But when the ink surfaced, it usually meant someone just made a mistake. She looked up. The yard was smaller now. But the war just started. A new sign staked into the dirt. Bright white. Perfectly laminated. Private pathway. HOAs. Approved. No name, no initials, just authority. Assumed. Marlene stood 2 feet in, right on Harper's soil, plastic cup in hand. She sipped slowly, watched the wind carry sawdust across the line, then smiled, like she'd just signed the deed, like the earth had shifted in her favor. Neighbors passed, none stopped. One nodded, unsure. Another adjusted their pace, faster now. Harper didn't move, but her eyes tracked it all. The heel mark near the iris bed. The cracked stem of her mother's last marigold. The exact angle the sign leaned, 12 degrees south. And under it, a folded rain-stained paper, tucked behind the stake. She crouched, lifted the edge. Notice of community adjustment. Not official, not signed. Stamped by a committee that no longer existed. She folded it once, twice, slipped it into her back pocket. Didn't say a word. Marlene was already on the porch, taking pictures, zooming, angling, click, click, click. The way a realtor would. A shadow slid across Harper's front window, wide, uninvited. It lingered too long, blocking light like it owned the frame. Harper looked up, didn't speak, didn't wave, just traced that shadow's edge with her gaze, held it, then turned, back toward the shed. The light shifted, the wind turned, time to measure again. But not with tape. Maybe you've felt this too, when someone crosses a line and the world just watches. I used to let things go, thought silence meant peace, but sometimes silence is just the start of the plan. If you've ever handled it quietly, I'd like to hear how. Stay close. These stories aren't done yet. The next morning, Harper swept the porch, slow, methodical, but the bristles never touched the ground. She wasn't cleaning, she was counting. 3 steps to the edge of the mulch, 4 more to the new sign, 7 to the first crack in the concrete, the one that marked the legal boundary. She paused there, then backed up. Eyes flicked once toward the doorbell cam. It leaned slightly now. off-center. The wind did that. She didn't fix it. She turned instead, walked across the lawn, and nudged a garden gnome 3 inches to the left. Just enough. From the street, no one would notice. From above, it was a marker, a time stamp, a line. That afternoon, Marlene crossed again. Same smoothie, same pace, this time wearing sunglasses. She stepped over the flower bed, again, then into Harper's shade, again. Harper didn't stop sweeping, but her phone was already recording, silent in her pocket. She'd mapped the blind spots, adjusted the height of the porch light cam 2 nights earlier. It caught angles the HOA would never think to check. 2 days later, the gate buzzed. A city inspector, surprised to be greeted with a folder. Inside, land surveys, deed copies, time-stamped photos, and one small note clipped to the corner. Requesting review of unsanctioned footpath encroachment, parcel 22. B. She didn't include Marlene's name, didn't need to. By dusk, another neighbor came by, looked at the sign, looked at the gnome, then at Harper. Said quietly, "It's just a path, right?" Harper didn't answer. She just tapped her boot against the boundary crack. Once, like punctuation. The wind picked up. The doorbell cam tilted again, slightly more this time. But she still didn't fix it. Because when they reviewed the footage later, that exact tilt would show exactly where Marlene crossed. And that was the trap. No alarm, no warning. Just a file, growing silently by the hour. The HOA meeting was quiet, too quiet. Folding chairs creaked. Lemon water sat untouched. Marlene arrived late, sunglasses on, lips pressed tight. She nodded to no one. The sign had stayed up a week now. People walked past it, some with questions, most with silence. Harper sat near the back. No clipboard, no eye contact, just a manila folder in her lap. When it came time for community updates, she raised her hand, just once, palm steady. "I'd like to ask," she said, voice even, "did anyone receive written approval for the new pathway sign?" Heads turned. Marlene looked up, just for a beat, then looked back down. No one answered. The room held still. Harper opened the folder, pulled out a copy of the original lot plans, red stamped, dated 2007. She held it up, turned it slowly. "No footpath recorded here," she added. "Not then. Not in the amendments, not in 2023. Still, no one spoke. Then, one voice near the front. Mrs. Beck, second row, gardening gloves in her purse. "I thought that sign was a prank." Another chuckle, nervous, then silence again. Harper stood, slid a printed photo onto the folding table, a still from the porch cam. Marlene mid-stride, chainsaw in hand, no gloves, no permit posted. The timestamp in red, the fence post in air. She didn't say a word, didn't point, just stepped back. Someone whispered, "That's destruction of property." Someone else, "Wait, who did approve that?" Marlene stood now, hands flat on the plastic table. "I was restoring access. It used to be public." No one replied. Harper didn't look at her. She looked at the neighbors, each one by one, and then Mr. Patel, who never spoke, just gave a quiet nod. That was enough. Because in that moment, the question stopped being who was louder. It became who had the map. And Harper, she had the map, the footage, the claws, the calm, 2 blows, 1 legal, 1 communal. And Marlene, suddenly very quiet. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived. Marlene's name in bold, stamped, returned to sender, property owner invalid. She stood in her driveway, rereading it twice, then stormed across the lawn. "To hell with this, I'm calling the city." But the city had already answered, quietly, efficiently, because Harper Lane had filed 6 purchase requests over a span of 5 months, all approved, all legal, tiny strips of land, one behind Marlene's fence, another under her side gate. The narrow path once shared by 5 homes, no longer public. Each deed had Harper's name. Each map bore the same stamp. Ghost Viper Strip, private access. Denied. That Tuesday, a utility crew arrived. Waterline. Technically, it crossed onto Harper's parcel. Technically, Marlene hadn't asked, so they turned the valve, politely, quietly, and left. An hour later, Marlene was outside, hair wet, shampoo in her eyes, screaming, "You can't do this!" From across the hedge, Mrs. Beck answered, flat director. "Can't she? Show us the paperwork." Marlene froze, because this time she had nothing. No permit, no approval. Not even her original lease line. Harper had absorbed that too. In the mailbox Harper now owned, a second letter waited. Notice of hearing dismissal. Plaintiff lacks standing. She read it once, folded it, slipped it into a file marked resolved. Then, with 2 fingers, she placed a new sign beside the gnome. Same font, same metal. But one sentence. Boundary enforced. Trespass documented. Later that night, the porch light flickered. The doorbell camera caught it all. Marlene walking up, seeing the sign, and stepping back. No words, no damage, just retreat. She hadn't lost a case. She'd lost ground. And Harper? She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't made a threat. She just took back everything, inch by inch, on paper, in silence, with precision. She rebuilt the fence herself. No contractors, no help. Just a tool belt, a folding chair, and the same slow rhythm she'd used 16 years ago. One board at a time, measured, cut, set. By the 3rd day, the smell of cedar carried past the hedge. By the 5th, the shape returned, exactly as it was, except for the sign. Private property, same font, same bolts. But this time, Harper mounted it 3 inches off center. Nobody asked why, but people noticed. Kids walking home from school slowed down. Mothers glanced, then looked away. One man paused, frowned, and kept walking. And every evening, when the light hit just right, Harper's shadow fell long across the grass. It stretched across the planks, across the line, but never across the word ghost viper. That stayed in the sun. One night, a child asked, "Who is she?" The mother hesitated, then whispered, "Someone who remembers." No one brought it up again. The gnome stayed where it was, exactly 3 inches off the flower bed edge. The camera stayed tilted. Harper never straightened it. And the porch light clicked on every dusk, then off again at 11 sharp. Routine returned, but not the same. Because now, every neighbor who stepped near that property did so a little slower, a little straighter. Not out of fear, but out of something else. Like walking through a place someone still cares about, even if they don't say it. Harper sat once on the porch, watched wind roll leaves down the old footpath. Didn't move, didn't sweep them away. Some lines, once redrawn, stay that way. And some silences never really end. Some people fix fences, others fix silence. Harper did both, without rushing, without asking. The boards will weather again, they always do. But now they carry memory, measured in inches, not stories, not scars. The sign still leans, 3 inches off, just enough to notice, if you're paying attention. No one touches it now. Even the wind seems to pass softer. A boy once asked what ghost viper meant. His grandfather just smiled, said, "That's a name you don't forget, even if you don't say it out loud." Some people leave behind books, some leave behind boundaries. Both are ways of saying, I was here. This mattered, not to prove anything, but to hold a line. A quiet life is not a weak one. Sometimes the stillest water hides the strongest root, and not every fight needs noise, only precision, only time. There are things that do not need to be fought for, as long as we can maintain our reason and composure.